Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Founders Forum series, one of the last few events for the month of Women's Month. I am your host, Elvira, and I'm so happy to be having a discussion with three other women today. So thank you for joining us. We hope to make this hour quite relaxed and quite fun as we share our stories as women across this entrepreneurial journey. It's an ever important topic. Women are needed in all facets of life, and we still have lots to do in the world of business. So today is just a mere taste of what it is we are here to do. Just some formalities quickly as we go into our session this afternoon. We have a team behind us supporting us young women, powerful women. Do engage, open up on the chat box as far as we can. We'll respond to any of your chats. Please put your microphones on mute and then make yourself visible. We do like to share and we want to see all your pretty faces and handsome faces today. I know there's a bunch of men supporting us today on the call and also a bunch of women. So without further adu, let us start our program. My name's Elvira. I am a USB alum. I am currently the incubation director at SU Launch Lab, so Stellenbosch University's Launch Lab. It's an incubator. And I've got 20 years financial services experience. I've left in 2020, I left my corporate world and I joined the world of entrepreneurship, and boy, did I need to go and find my community. Probably why I got to an incubator at the end of the day. So right now I work with entrepreneurs in all areas of the entrepreneurial journey, and I get to share my experience from corporate and also my enthusiasm for the topic of entrepreneurship. So I'll be the host of our session today, and I'd like to introduce our panelists. Oh, sorry, before I introduce the panelists, our agenda for today. We will hear from each one's story. All three of our panelists have amazing different journeys, so we'll get to share and hear from them quickly about how they got to where they are today. Then we'll open up the floor. We have given our panelists sort of three very interesting questions, and we're just going to have a casual discussion about the topic of women in business. Lastly, we'll close the call with just an interesting question on what must change in entrepreneurship. And we're just going to open up the flow. We're going to make the session very relaxed and informative, and we're going to have some fun, right? Introducing Kim. Meeting Kim is quite interesting. Kim is a lovely, bubbly personality. She helps in all areas of everything in the conversation. So I've been very lucky to have an interaction with Kim already. Kim is an impressive entrepreneur. She started so many different businesses and seems to have traveled the world as well while doing that. Award-winning. Over and over, I think 7 times over when I last counted. Please visit Kim's LinkedIn profile, do connect with her and see sort of all the awards that Kim has won. Kim's also a proud alum of our university, and we welcome you today, Kim, with your voice and your experience and your energy. So I'm looking forward to spending some time with you in the next hour.
Thank you.
Roshana is a USB alum as well, and Roshana has a very local Cape Town business and has seemed to walk all facets of life in her entrepreneurial journey. She started out on the SBA program in 2014 with the USB and ended now recently in 2020 with an MBA at the USB. Roshana brings a very, I think to me, a localized entrepreneurial flavor, and I always find it so fascinating to hear Roshana's perspective on how business and how women and how communities are surviving in this given time, but also just generally how we strive and how resilient entrepreneurs are. So Roshana is the founder of Little Mermaid Swim School, and she brings her own sort of piece of the world today to us. Thank you, Roshana. And our final panelist is Sia Maya. Powerful woman, that's what I sort of think of when I spoke to Sia the first time. She personifies herself with diligence, determination, and skill. And Sia truly is operating in a man's world, petroleum no less, oil and gas. When I read Sia's profile, I thought, sure, that's definitely a man's world that you are operating. So I cannot wait for Sia's story as Sia shares her 19 years of experience and also founding 2 businesses in a very dominated, male-dominated sector or industry. And yeah, thank you for coming and joining us on the session today. Right, without further ado, I'm going to stop screen sharing. It's a pleasure, Sia. I'm going to stop screen sharing. And I'm going to hand over to Sia to start her, to tell us about her entrepreneurial journey.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. And thanks, Alvaro and your team for such an opportunity. So my career started in a power utility some 21 years ago. I have an electrical engineering background, and I had served in the utility for about 14 years. At some point in the latter part of my service, I was tasked to establish a business unit which was supposed to be provincial bound. And this is where, as an executive, I was exposed in a number of various general management roles, as well as stakeholder management. And at the time, we were in crisis, so the budgets that I was promised suddenly disappeared. So I had to turn what would have been cost centers to profit centers. And through this journey, it actually gave me a comfort and confidence to launch into my own and start my own business. So in 2015, I established a trading entity, a petroleum trading entity, Zas Petroleum, which specializes in oil and gas export and imports, as well as wholesale supply of diesel in the country and surrounding countries. So through those engagements and collaborations, I met my then to-be business partner, whom we together established a bunkering entity in offshore in the Eastern Cape, in Port Elizabeth, in what is called Algoa Bay. And this is, for anyone who doesn't know what bunkering is where vessels or ships are being refueled at sea by another vessel. And this we started in 2016. It got to be operational in 2018, and in 2019, a majority stake was bought by foreign investors. So in a nutshell, I am an entrepreneur, and I like to say serial. I still think not serial yet, because it's just 2 for now. But I am an entrepreneur. I am a mother, I am a daughter, I am a wife, and I'm a friend. And in a nutshell, that's who I am. Thank you.
Thanks, Sia. I mean, ladies, you just said to your petrol or diesel to kind of go like, well, what does this woman even do? I mean, that's the closest I get is to get to the car and I don't even think, or to the garage and I fill up with petrol. I don't even think I fill up, I check oil. My husband always scolds me. So thank you for your warm introduction and sharing of your journey. I'm going to ask Kim to give us a bit of a brief on her journey and share how you got to where you are today.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Yeah, so I started my entrepreneurial journey when I was 23. I had just finished at Stellenbosch and I decided to go and travel the world. And I was teaching skiing in Austria and teaching English in South America. And while I was there, I realized I really want to start a backpackers hostel. It looked like such a fun business. Like I could just imagine jolling all day and like just doing a little bit of work and then just meeting people and it would be amazing. And so I came back to Cape Town and I said, yeah, like this is what I want to do. And my parents were like, oh, she's nuts. So they said, okay, you should do a year of marketing just to kind of get that under the belt. So at least you'll have people there. So I studied for a further year. And so the day after I graduated, I opened my business, which was a tiny little backpackers hostel in Observatory called 33 South. And it was basically everything out of my black book. Like as I traveled, all these things happened to me. Like all my clothes got stolen at the one hostel. So I was like, I'm going to build lockers that lock. And I'm going to build this so that you can charge your phone inside the locker that locks. And like all these little black book like tips that I'm like really made it come alive. And then I guess timing wise was great. We hit the World Cup 3 years into opening the business and that was super fun. I opened the second backpackers, I sold it. So I guess at 26, I'd sold my first business, which was really interesting. I didn't sell it for a lot, but I learned about the value of building a brand and selling it on. Then a few years later, I joined a group of guys and we bought a big hotel, so it had 50 rooms, and we turned it into Once in Cape Town. And again, we just had this idea of creating a space where young people can come and like really be pushed a little bit out of their comfort zone and just get to know each other and get to connect in a way that young people are often craving, but are sometimes not brave enough to do. So everything was based around experience. And we went on to open once in Joburg, which was in Johannesburg, in like downtown Joburg and Braamfontein, super bustling, vibrant area close to Wits University. And so that was amazing for me to experience that grittier side of Cape Town too. And then Johannesburg, I mean. And then finally in 2018, we launched Kwela Women, which is an experiential learning academy where we took under-resourced women from the Cape Town area. In our first year, we took 20 and included them in our program. And we did a 3-week road trip through the country, basically teaching tourism skills through experience. So you went bungee jumping and horse riding, and everyone got a passport and went into Swaziland to actually experience like what it's like to be a tourist. And then we taught soft skills and hard skills, and then everyone sort of got a job in the tourism industry. And we did that for 2 years. We placed about 50 women, and that was hugely enriching. And we're still going today. In fact, that's my main focus now that COVID hit. That was kind of the final chapter, and I learned what it's like to liquidate a company, because we had to unfortunately close down once in Joburg, which was hugely sad, and retrenching over 50 people was heart-wrenching, but it was part of what was necessary to sustain the business. And I guess the final business thing was during lockdown, I launched a platform called Ubuntu Beds, where I had this moment when I was cleaning my kitchen, listening to Alanis Morissette, and I was like, what are we going to do with all these empty hotels? And what are we going to do with all these healthcare workers who don't want to come to work because they don't want to get their families sick? And I was like, oh, why don't we put them in here? And so we very quickly launched this platform. And to date, we've placed about 3,000 healthcare workers, which is about 30,000 nights, very heavily supported by some great corporates and just lots of people getting together and like putting momentum into that platform. So that is me in a nutshell. Yeah, and I'm super stoked to be here today.
Great, thank you, fantastic, Yul. Ladies, I promise Kim has got such a broad range of experiences. So I'm almost nervous to the 10 minutes of when we're going to be chatting about sort of how deep we're going to go and how far we're going to go. But thank you for the introduction, Kim. Rushana, if you can share your entrepreneurial journey with us today.
Thank you, Elvira. Thank you, Kim and Sia, for setting the tone. Good afternoon, everybody. As you heard, I'm Rushana Hartnick. I am the founder of Little Mermaid Swim School in Mitchell's Plain, and I started the swim school back in 2012. Now, back in 2012, I think the vision was always that we wanted to make each child a swimmer on the Cape Flats, right? And how things have changed, oh my word. Anyway, but how I started the swim school was quite strange, because like Kim, my parents also listened to my ridiculous dream, as I called it back then, and thought, hell no, girl, you don't have the money, you don't have the resources, you don't even have a swimming pool. How are you even going to start a swim school? Back in 2011, I was working at a swim school in a very affluent and greeny suburb in Cape Town, and you know, the au pairs could bring the swimmers in this big Chrysler, and the kids would just jump out to the pool and they come for swimming lessons while the au pair sits there with a magazine. And I said, no ways, kids in Mitchell's Plain should be able to learn to swim. You know, we should have a Sia swimming, we should have a Sibongile, we should have a Chantal swimming, and that's what I'm going to go out and do. So in 2012, we started the swim school with about 35 swimmers, and I didn't have more than a matric. So I had no business sense. I only had this ridiculous dream of mine, and I was good with kids, and I was a swimming instructor. So, you know, you put the two together and you think, boom, you're going to have a business. Little did I know that I had a very different market to the one that I was used to in the leafier suburb. Here in Mitchell's Plain, people are in the bus 6 o'clock in the morning and they only get back at about 7 o'clock in the evening. So when is this child supposed to learn to swim? And that has been the idea of starting a swim school that is coupled with some daycare centers in the Mitchell's Plain and Khayelitsha area came from. So what we do is we partner up with these daycare centers. We collect swimmers at the daycare, bring them for lessons, have them in the swimming pool. It's indoor, it's heated. They get to learn this vital life skill. Business was good, but then you realize having a business in a community is very difficult because you are the business. And if you are not there and you are not doing what needs to be done, then actually there's no business, right? So it was very difficult for me in the beginning to separate myself from the swim school. And because I didn't have the credentials, well, I thought I didn't have the credentials, I decided to also work on my own personal development. And that is when I fell in love with studying. I started out, like Alvira said, I started out with a small business academy, and the USB offers this really great program where business owners from Mitchell's Plain and Khayelitsha and the rest of the Cape Flats gets to join the business school with a development program, which has these really great little modules that you get to do. And at the end, I thought I had this piece of paper. I now need to make this business grow. Luckily for me, I created myself a really good network of women, like-minded women that believed in all the ridiculous dreams that I have. And we now have a swim school with more than 500 swimmers per week. We partner with 18 daycare centers. And although COVID was quite a bummer, I think it's also made us realize just how important these skills are. I'm sure you all watched the Olympics and you now know that our country is actually really brilliant at water sports. So what stops us from getting that very next Olympian coming straight from my neck of the woods? Thank you, Alvira. I hope that sums it up.
Absolutely. And we're going to hear a bit more about how challenging that journey was and who supported you. Clearly behind the scenes. So as the host, I get to peruse while everyone was introducing their journeys, and I could see that we have only 2 men on the call. So to everyone on the call today, please jump in. We have asked each of our panelists a key question, which we're going to open up the floor with in a second. But if you have anything to add, anything to say, let's make it informal. We only have 2 guys. They don't mind. I know both of these guys, they are just like women anyway on the best days. So they are lovely and engaging. And it's just us. So let's just make it a discussion about just us. After all, it is Women's Month. It is the month we talk about us, we talk about them, we talk about everyone. So please just feel relaxed. And to my panelists, let's make this, sort of really interactive and let's open up and support our fellow panelists as we entertain our guests for the next few minutes. And really just have a discussion, guys. I think the message for me today is using my voice to still bring about key topics. I've worked long and hard in my 20 years of corporate experience to get to the space of where I have a platform and I have an opportunity. And I do thank Siraj, who's the curator of the Founders Forum, for giving us this opportunity and to giving our beloved alumni a chance to just come together again. So to Siraj on the call, thank you very much for allowing us here today. And let's then open up our session. So we asked Sia, our petroleum founder, our guru of the male industry, what is it like starting a business in a male-dominated industry? And then, of course, we want to talk about the narrative of being a female or being a woman in business, but is it an advantage or is it a disadvantage? So over to you, Sia, as we start this key sort of topic. Start the discussion on this key topic.
Cool, thank you. Yeah, let's have a girl talk. I think I like that approach. It makes one feel less nervous. So what is it like to operate in a male-dominated environment? I would say it's quite interesting, right? It creates an environment where one has to grow. It's almost like you're not given an option. You just have to put up your big girl panties and just carry on with life despite of difficulties. And of course, as the first few women that have started, the journey is always challenging. But I mean, throughout all of those challenges, every little win, becomes such a sweet reward at the end of any challenge. So I would not change it for a bit. And of course, me being a half glass full kind of a person, naturally I'm positive and I'm more inclined to highlight the positive. But today I thought, let me challenge myself because I'm in a safe space amongst supportive men and women, fellow women. So I thought, let me tackle your question with regards to if being a female in a male-dominated environment was advantageous or not. And my answer is in two ways. It's yes and it's no. And I'll start with the yes, because I'm positive. In theory, and of course, for the purpose of me having entered the industry, I would say yes, because it was advantageous. Mainly because, I mean, we are a country that is perfect when it comes to policy making, right? We have legislations that is pro-women. We have speeches that are always encouraging women-led and women operated businesses and women-owned businesses to come and take up the space. So we have abundance of that. And that certainly has had an impact and influence on me taking up space in these industries. Now, bear in mind, I am coming from a family where we have only one boy and we are 5 girls. So I'm used to being amongst women, but strange enough, in my career, I've always worked in male-dominated, environments. So coming into this space, I'll make an example. In the year 2000, the Department of Mineral and Energy instituted what they called a liquid fuel charter. And this is where it was created. It was meant to, ensure that there's broader participation of people that are of previously disadvantaged backgrounds in the oil and gas. And this was instituted like when I started working, right? And 10 years later, when government did an audit, they found that despite having encouraged this participation and putting policies and structures to channel participation of Black and women and so forth, companies, they found that women somehow got left behind, women of all colors. And they were only, visible in retail space, for instance, where they would own a garage or part own a garage here and there. And this was long before BEE was matured like it is now. And that, for me, created an opportunity because that's from seeing that stat that I got interested and I thought, hang on, I have something to add here. I have a value that I can create and I can add. And therefore, I ended up jumping into this industry and making a success of it. Now, to this day, you still hear, I mean, there's still a broader call for women to participate. And still, that gender gap is still very wide. You still need more women-led companies to come into the space so that we can be able to support each other and also to change the narrative as far as women are concerned. Now, in practice, though, different. I would say no, because there are still spaces where, as a woman, no one is interested in hearing my voice. We still find that in companies, in big corporates, women-owned companies are a nice accessory to have, right? As long as they don't have a voice, as long as they don't have a point of view, then they are nice to have to count and tick a box that, we have these companies that we're supporting. And we are forever put on this supplier development box, I mean, how can a company that is 10 years old still be in supplier development candidate, right? Instead of actually being a performing, company that can be procured from. So you find that there's still reluctance to actively engage women in a meaningful way. And certainly you find that you are welcome as long as you know your place, meaning that as long as you are seen and not heard. And that has been my experiences in a number of platforms, not my only experience, but it's the experience that I choose to speak about today because I cannot dare keep quiet and my daughter faces the same thing because I only said about what is nice and rosy and didn't speak about the challenges that we need to demystify, right? So we often carry labels as a woman and competence is never the first label that you carry. When you walk in a room, it's either you are viewed as a tea lady,
You are either aggressive or arrogant, or you're too soft, red, weak, or you're just a clever black, who doesn't know their place. And these are the labels that I do not think I'm unique to this. I think people in corporate, I think other people in different businesses, even if it's not regarded as male dominated, you still come and carry that label. And I often had to go through all of these labels to get to a point where I can meaningfully contribute and get to a point where I have to earn my competence, right? And in some areas you just have to just cut your losses and go, but you have to go through all of these things to get to a point where you can be viewed and can be heard and you can contribute meaningfully. So I guess my conclusion in my part of the question would be that a lot still needs to be done to demystify all of the labels that we come as, and also to be able to create an environment where women at face value come and are expected to offer value, right? And are seen on face value not because of a biological makeup, but because they have a value to offer, and therefore they have a lot to offer that they can. And historically and even academically, it's been said that women change the world, and we're here to just change it one person at a time. We just need a space where we can actually equally fish on the pond with our steady rods that we've created ourselves, and we just want access. That's it. So that's, I guess, in a nutshell, that's my story. I hope that it's passionate because it's my experience, but all I can say is that we need a lot of mindset to change, both with ourselves so that we can push through the lies, but also with the people in the industry so that they can be able to accept us and have much more many women as policymakers, as executives, as business owners, as workers in all spheres of life, so that we can create this mess, critical mess, to be able to move things forward. So thanks, Alvaro.
Sure. Thanks for sharing that, Sia. I mean, I think I also I find myself in a very polarized demographic sort of little space at the moment in the work that I do, and often it is males, and often it is white males, that I'm sort of spending time with. But every now and then, when as a female I sit there and I remind myself that I am part of that change by being around the table. So I am encouraged, actually, that I have the stamina and the resilience to kind of take those challenges, because I guess this is where our soft nurturing side also comes in. We do tend to, as women, be a little bit more compassionate and empathetic to someone not seeing the opportunities that are in front of them in the discussion, so I think we are the perfect species to break this change about bringing the balance in the business world. So I have one little question for you. Do you find that when you are around the table, that you almost need to give your founder's card first to sort of say, I am the MD or the founder of this organization that you are? Do you find that you need to sort of whip it out and sort of display just my stature quickly, just or do you find that it's sort of it's a bit of a...
Yeah, look, at first I was tempted to do that, which is so unnatural. I think for most women, we don't blow our own horn. I think Kim said that the other day as well, and I found it so true. But right nowadays, I am just, I guess I've done a lot of internal work to be comfortable with who I am and know that when the space presents itself, I will be able to make an impact, the one that is not forced, but at the right time. So I don't anymore. I really am quite comfortable coming in overalls and no one knowing me who I am, as long as I know I have a team behind me that can be effective and do what they need to do. And in those spaces that I'm not most welcome to, I send them in for the time being. And then they get the shock of their lives to see that a woman is behind this. So we find ways to make it work.
Absolutely. Just that you're wearing an overall. I mean, how sexy. Thank you for sharing. I'll give a few seconds to anyone who has a question. If you're welcome to unmute for a second. Let's see, anything for Sia at this point? I see there's a question popping up from Frida. So it says, do you remain being a woman, or do you show your feminist side, or do you have to act like a man, Sia?
I wish I could say that I was feminine all the time, but in all fairness, it's situational, Frida. Most of the time, I'm myself. I am who I am. I have a huge accent. I am someone who loves laughing. I just try to be who I am despite the environment. But there are environments where I have to accept myself. And unfortunately, when I accept myself, I do become like a man. So, I'm still finding my way. But so far, being myself has worked best.
Oh, lovely. Great. You are a strong woman. And then Soraya. Oops, sorry. There we go. I hear a voice.
No, I just wanted to say thank you, Sia.
Oh, thank you, Frida. And then Soraya asked Sia very quickly before we move on to Kim, what opportunities are there for women in your industry at the moment? What do you see are sort of glaring opportunities that you would tell another?
Sure, man, there are a number of opportunities, from starting your own wholesale company, to starting other services company to support wholesale companies. Honestly, the list is endless. It's just that, unfortunately, some people do not get to see them at first because they are still labeled as men. Dominated. I get fascinated every day. I see the maritime side of things where you see, officers at the vessel who go, away from land for weeks on end. And they are toughening it up. They're making it happen. They're coming in. They are bringing in goods. They are carrying the trade of the world, not just of South Africa. And these are women. Some are deckhands, some are engineers, some are managers, some are, just anything and everything. Opportunities are there. You just have to pick one that you like the most, and then you reach out to somebody who is there, who can assist to point in the right direction. And I'm available to see how far I can assist with the little that I know.
Absolutely. I mean, and that's entrepreneurship, right? It's just, you just got to get out and just do it. I mean, at Launch Lab, we talk, not that this is a Launch Lab sort of promo moment, but we do talk about getting out the building and actually just interacting with different stakeholders, because that takes you one step closer. Thank you, Sia, for your few words. We'll chat again in a few minutes. I'm going to hand over to the other panelists now. So Kim, this vibrant entrepreneur, we asked the question, being an entrepreneur, what really matters? And male profiles that supported you across your journey in business, and sort of what sort of stood out for you, I think, Kim, in your journey, but also where your counterparts have supported you and where you would probably have not done certain things without that male counterpart. That's the question we asked Kim.
Awesome, thank you. So I guess on the question of what really matters, what I've learned recently is to articulate my values and how that really matters to me. And my entrepreneurial journey, like, there are 3 top values that for me encapsulate what I do. And that is curiosity, knowledge, and showing up. And they kind of change order now and then, but I'll start off with curiosity. So I guess where curiosity is important for me as an entrepreneur is constantly, like, just picking up whatever I'm interested in, recognizing gaps in the market, and then actually stopping and going, okay, cool, there's a market in the gap, like a gap in the market, but is there a market in the gap? And that sort of brings me to your second question, like, where have I been helped by male profiles? So that particular lesson was taught to me by Ian Furr, who is an incredible man. He is the founder of Sorbet. And when I was writing my thesis in 2019, I wrote him and I was like, I love that you say people before profit. Would you meet me for coffee? And he was like, sure. And then he became my mentor. And I think that is maybe one of the first things I'll say about male profiles, is that I've had extremely supportive sort of mentors throughout my entrepreneurial journey. Often people who are very unlike me, where I'm like wild and creative and started out so much studying fine art. I'll seek advice from like an accountant who's in the fishing industry. So for example, like that is just miles away from what I do, but they've got so much experience and stuff that I've got no idea about. So that's my first thing, is curiosity. The second one is showing up. And I find that showing up is such an interesting thing that comes up again and again, especially working with women, is that like, for me, showing up is three things as well. Number one, no excuses, which is another word for taking accountability. Like number two, having the confidence to just like put yourself out there. And finally, speaking your truth. And so those things have really stood me in good stead. And someone asked earlier, like, what do you do when things aren't going your way or whatever? It finally kind of brings me to the third point. Something that I really ascribe to a lot is Steve Covey's circle of control, and saying like some things are in my control and some things are not in my control. And what people think about me is definitely not something I can control. And like when I come into the room and someone doesn't like what I have to say or whatever, like I can't control that. And especially if I'm saying something that's worth having a discussion around, like that's difficult, I will always polarize. I'll always have people who absolutely love it and people who absolutely hate it. The same with my brand. Like if I have a great brand, I'll have haters and I'll have staunch followers. So I think kind of having that confidence to just say, I'm me, take it or leave it, has always stood me in really, really good stead. So the final thing is knowledge. And I think that a growth mindset and understanding new ways of thinking, continuously learning, whether it's through a program or just learning a new language. Like I'm trying to learn Xhosa on WhatsApp at the moment. So every morning I like practice my Xhosa, and like it's just something little that keeps my brain going. And that's that constant knowledge is really like, yeah, it stood me in really, really good stead. In fact, it's what got me through Stellenbosch. I actually failed first year. I failed fine art. And then on the same breath, I passed first year because I took so many extra subjects. Like, for example, the French tutor was really hot, so I took French. And turns out that I got a whole separate degree in like beer, art, taal, and culture that I didn't even know I had enough points for. So sometimes like having curiosity and that extra knowledge has stood me in super, super good stead. Yeah, and in other ways that men support me, my husband, a massive support. And in our relationship, he's a lot more soft, warm, nurturing. I'm actually sort of more hard, cold, like direct. And so that has been an interesting kind of thing where you'd normally think the man will be like that and the woman will be softer, whereas in our relationship, it's slightly different. The second point is forum. So I have a group of entrepreneurs. We meet once a month. There are 8 of us, 2 women, 6 men from completely different industries. And we meet for 4 hours a month. And that is really the board for my life. And they give me tremendous support. And finally, Women of EO, which is a chapter-based organization. And we have about 23 women who are all business owners. And we're like, show up for each other and we do events together. And we like, at the moment, we're mentoring 25 young entrepreneurs. And we just like do super cool entrepreneurial stuff. And so having that backup and that energy on days when you're like, oh, I'm so alone. No one else knows what I'm going through. And actually, there are a whole lot of people who do. So, yeah.
It's such a female thing to, I mean, I love your values, like the show up values. I mean, I think just before entrepreneurship, just being a female, the lessons are almost taught to you to be supportive. It's that sisterhood, right? It's that sort of, you never know who's going to need you in what season and for what reason. So I mean, it's great that it comes through in business as well. I mean, I'm just sort of inspired by how you carry something that us as girls, we are taught to do, to be naturally the protector, the nurturer, the primary carer, whichever your structure of your family may be, but you've kind of taken that into sort of how you do business, and you've kind of continued that thread in a way, it's really amazing. So thank you for your story, I think, Kim. Sure, there's so much more that I want to ask, but I'm just conscious of time, so I'm going to save that one little question for a little bit later. But I would like to switch over to Rushana. And with Rushana being a local business from the Mitchells Plain area, I was curious, definitely, the role of sort of building a community business. And community, I would imagine the pair, the husband and the wife kind of sort of is the focal point. And I would hope to hear a little bit about sort of how Rushana balanced all of that, So often when we put on a business hat, we change our personal persona slightly. And that kind of changes you as an individual to the partner that you married. I mean, I don't know, Rushana, if your husband woke up and sort of said, this is not the person I married, but over to Rushana. We asked Rushana the question, community-built businesses embrace the needs of family and the family unit. And so what does the role of the husband play when you're building a business in sort of in today's terms? That was our question. Over to you, Rushana.
Thank you, Alvida. That was such a cool question. You know me personally, and I remember when I started talking about, I should start a swim school. We should move back to my mom's house, and because there's space there, let's just build a swim school there. Let's just start there. My husband often looked at me like, this girl is on something. But I think with me nagging and he would come home and I'd be writing down a business plan, or I'd be drawing up an indemnity form, and constantly he had to hear about my big dream of starting a swim school that eventually was just like, why don't you just do it? And you as an entrepreneur, you sometimes just develop this quiet determination where you want to look around at everyone else and you just want to say, I'm going to show you. And I think that was really one of those moments when my parents and everyone else was going like, just find a job. I was just quietly saying to myself, you are all going to see how this is going to change things in our community. And that's exactly what I did. And I promise you, I wouldn't be able to have done that if I didn't have Masood's support, if eventually I didn't have the support of my parents. I am the eldest and the only girl in my family, Sia. Can you imagine? So I've got brothers, and I feel that because I showed them the determination that I have in starting a business, that they are now supporting their wives who have interest in starting their own businesses. And that really just makes me understand that what I have done has made, has opened up a path for someone else. And coming back to a community-based business, the work that we do in this community links with so many other businesses. So even though COVID has come and COVID has really broken down these systems, it's because we have that type of community feels to our business that we've been able to help each other recover very quickly. And I think that's something very important that is sometimes taken for granted when people speak about small businesses in environments like mine. And then also I love what Kim said about mentorship, and I feel that it goes both ways. Like, it was amazing how Kim could speak about, she's brilliant and she has a mentor. Sorry, I apologize, I must swim. And what happens is, although you have that mentor, you understand that it's also important for you to then mentor someone else or more. And it's great that, yes, Kim, like you, I choose mentors that are very different to me, that have a very different perspective, that is not always a yes sayer. You have that friend that's always a yes friend. She says yes to everything. My mentors are always the no friends, because they come from corporate backgrounds. They are much more systematic. They don't think up an idea and then just, pull it out of their hat and make it happen. No, they plan it for months. My mentor, I call him my Mohammed. Now, Mohammed is very systems thinking, very analytical. Mohammed would go and start out with all these causal loop diagrams, and I'm like, Mohammed, let's just start. Let's just do this. Let's just jump in there and we can fail and then we can just rework it and we'll just make it happen. You know, and I wear my badge of failure with pride because I want to be able to show to my children, to my family, to my friends that it's okay to fail. And when you fail, it's the ability to get back up that makes you the person that you're going to be at the end of the day. So I know I'm rambling off, but it speaks about the support that I've created for myself. It speaks about, the support that I've received from others and how that has now enabled me to support those that are going to come after me. Thank you, Alvida.
Thank you, Rushana. I mean, I'm hearing, I hear two men in your world. So I hear Masood and I hear Mohammed. How do you balance it all? Do you have a strategy session? Do you switch off at 5 and then start talking only family stuff? How does it work in a sort of, and then also I suppose the community. I mean, 2 businesses down the road from you. When do you get involved and when don't you get involved? How do you manage that as a sort of nurturing woman in your community?
Sometimes you just have to go with where things are at that moment. Firstly, with Masood and I, there's never a cut-off time. There'll be, we have these light bulb moments and we look at each other and we're like, oh, I wanted to share this with you. And Masood will either say, yes, let's just go for that one, or you'll go, maybe speak to me within business hours, and then I sometimes understand that's probably a no. And when it comes to other businesses or having someone down the road that needs my help, or you need to step in with something that has happened, or someone that you're mentoring, sometimes I just have to also pause, because as you can see, I think at 180 kilometers an hour, and I sometimes do things at 220 kilometers an hour. So sometimes I know to myself, I need to just pause and take it all in first before I start reacting.
Okay, so it's a little bit like the lady said earlier, like owning your own space and having that mastery to know your limits and structure your world, essentially, right? So as women, we have to multitask, not only in the kitchen, but also on the laptop and in business and on calls.
Definitely, Alvida. I also want to just add, I was that crazy person like you to go and do an MBA full time while having a 2-year-old child and a 2-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 10-year-old child. And my husband just decided he's going to have to take the nurturing role. He's going to need to sit up when a child is sick and I have to be in class, or I have an assignment and a deadline that is due. And I think those were the times that he looked at me and he thought, I didn't marry all of this. But we battle through all these things so that when things go well, or when there's an award, or there's that little success in a child starting trials towards doing the Olympics in 2024, that is when you know that all of these things that you are doing matter.
Absolutely. Sure, I almost feel sad for men, really, that they're not women in a way, because I think we are a sort of fantastic species, only because we do have a lot of we are so in tune with our nurturing side and our soft skills. It does come quite naturally, but then we also know how to turn in and get a little bit more resilient and tenacious around, like you say, those failures and getting up and going again. So I'm quite lucky to be a girl, and I'm quite blessed that I have a girl. So, and then I'll please share some of my girlness with my boy as well. We're doing great for time. So again, please do pop any questions into the chat box. I am picking it up. So over to the panel. I'm opening this all up. The question really was, what needs to change? And what can female founders do to differently sort of from today? And whether you are a founder or not a founder, but what is it that you would leave this audience with as female founders? I know you've said a lot of inspirational parts, or you shared a lot of inspirational parts of your journey, but sort of what would be the one thing you would tell another aspiring entrepreneur, or just another female who's looking to work with entrepreneurs, who work with other businesses or have customers, etc. And then incorporated into that, I would like to add Yolanda van der Westeen's question. How do you keep yourself motivated despite the business setbacks? So if you can just maybe think of that question. I know, Kim, you said you wanted to also sort of answer that. Yolanda also asked, how do you keep your entrepreneurship dreams and goals alive? So obviously it is a time that is challenging for business in general, whether you're a male or whether you're a female, it doesn't necessarily matter, but it is a challenging economy at the moment, and might still be like that for a while. So maybe just think of those sort of comments that was made by our audience as you respond to what needs to change, guys. Let's open it up.
Yeah, thank you.
You want to go first? Yeah,
sure. So I'll give you an analogy. I got COVID last year, and I realized 3 months after recovering that I was just so unfit. And I was like, I really, really want to get fit. And then this weekend, I finally did a 21-kilometer trail run, which was my big goal. And I was so excited. And I was at the start, and I ran very slow, by the way. I was running right at the end the whole way, but for me, I'm super winning because I just finished. That was my goal. And as I started, I was picturing, okay, so it was snowing, it was hailing, it was raining during the run, and it was river crossing. It was pretty hectic in the middle of Greyton in the mountains. And I could just imagine majestic leaps over rivers, and I was visualizing this amazing run that I was about to do. And then I zone back in and I listen to the people around me. They're like, oh man, I don't think I've trained enough. Oh, I think my knee's gonna give me trouble. Oh, it's gonna be cold. And I was like, oh my gosh, you're here. You made it all the way here. There's gonna be so many challenges. The last thing you need is your brain also challenging you. And so I guess that is our choice. That is our power. Every day when we wake up, we have that choice. Am I going to look at, I'm here, I'm at the race. Am I going to look at all the negative stuff, or am I going to focus, I'm going to go, yes, that exists. And if it's going to be a danger, I'll assess that risk. But I'm going to focus on what I can control, and that's the positive stuff. And I think that's, for me, an analogy, of how I see an answer to that question is that, yes, I think that network is important. So when I look at how successful male entrepreneurs have built their wealth and their businesses, it's because they have the spider web effect. They work with each other, they support each other. And I think as women, we need to focus on doing that for our best friends, for our sisters, for our moms, for our aunties. If someone's starting a business, buy for them, at full price. Don't ask for a discount. Put it out there. So many female entrepreneurs that I'm working with, when they put out there, hey, I've started a business, the first things their friends say is, oh, you're not going to be good enough, or you're what are you thinking? Let's just turn that around and say, yes, girl, can I buy your journal? Can I buy your cap or whatever, and I'm not going to ask for a discount. I'm going to pay full price. And I think that is super important, creating that network and supporting people who are just starting out. And the other thing is, you mentioned it's a tough market. 70% of the JSE stock exchange is generated, the revenue is generated outside of South Africa. There's so much money in the world right now. Everyone's working remotely. Unless you have a very brick and mortar business, there's almost no reason to be limited to South Africa. If you have anything that's a SaaS business, consulting, any kind of marketing related, the world is your customer now, which is such a golden opportunity.
Absolutely. I mean, you can find other avenues just by opening it up, essentially opening up the thought process. Cool. Thank you, Kim. Sia, do you have anything to add about what needs to change?
Yeah, so for me, I think I've said in terms of the structural issues that needs to just be addressed in terms of the external issues. There isn't much we can do about that, as Kim has eloquently said. So which leaves to one thing, you just have to start, right? You just want people to go and get involved. You may not be an expert in it, but once you start, there's a magic that happens where you tend to attract things that are there to conspire for you to succeed. But that can't happen when you're just sitting with an idea, right? You have to take the step and take the plunge. It's literally a plunge because one, you're not guaranteed income, and two, you're not guaranteed success. But it depends what you define as success. So remember why you're starting, and always keep that in mind. That will, for one, keep you going. And also, I can't just say one thing. I mean, there's a number of things that we can put out there for people to pick up as takeaways. But self-knowledge is crucial. You have to know yourself intimately, spiritually, physically, psychologically. You have to try and strive to know yourself, because with all of the negative talks out there, the worst is the negative self-talk. If you get yourself in that spiral, then it's going to be difficult for you to achieve anything. So you have just to be daring, know yourself, and just start. And for me, I believe that's what will change the world, one person at a time. I mean, I'm so inspired by what Roshana is doing. I am inspired by Kim's energy. I just wish I could just take from you guys. But the reality is I am taking the fact that we're having this conversation. We are creating a body of knowledge out there for other women who wants to start, and men, to just find out and not find these things along the way. At least get to know some of the things before you start. In terms of the question, how do I keep motivated? My family. I have amazing sisters. I have an amazing mom. I have an amazing husband. I have great kids. And I'm saying great because I might just be like male if I don't. But yes, I have great kids. So I love spending time with my family, and that recharges me every time. But if you don't know yourself, you won't know that there's value in loving your family, and that you can recharge in that way and go back again at it again. So for me, that's very important.
Fantastic. Roshana, over to you before we close off.
Thanks, Alvida. So I feel like it's important that I speak about what motivates me. What motivates me is doing things that matters. And only you can decide what matters for you, doing something that is going to fulfill you and make you get out of bed in the morning. That is purposeful work, And my family, of course, they inspire me, but I've got this sense of curiosity. There's still so much that I want to achieve, still so much that I want to experience, still so many things that I want to tackle, so many people I want to help, so many people I want to inspire. And when Sia speaks about self-talk, I've got this really, it's very important to me that we always leave a message with the children that swim at the swim school. So we've started these little affirmations for them. So whether it's, you teaching them to say certain things to themselves every single day. And whether it means it only happens here once a week when they come for their swimming lesson, I know that eventually they are going to believe that they can do anything. So constant self-talk, constant, giving of yourself in a way that is purposeful and going to leave a legacy and inspire someone else is probably the one thing that just makes me get out of bed in the morning. And always having the sense of curiosity, whether it's a program you want to do, whether it's sewing skills you want to achieve, whether it's to be able to speak French and get that extra bit of undergrad bachelor's that Kim just, how does that even happen? It's that sense of curiosity that you just want to go into the world and you want to leave a mark. Thank you so much for this afternoon. It was lovely chatting to you all.
Absolutely. It was really great. And I feel like the hour, we didn't do justice, right? We should have had at least an hour and a half. I don't know what crazy woman said, let's do an hour session. Ladies, before we have to cut off, I do want to say thank you. Thank you for sharing your stories. Thank you for being such inspirational leaders and examples to us all. Mani, I see you. I know Mani has asked sort of what advice would an innovator what advice would you give an innovator? So I'll take liberty very quickly, ladies, and I'll sort of say, Moni, reach out to your fellow women entrepreneurs. You are 3 today that will not deny a LinkedIn invitation and a connection. And Nosi, she sort of jumped in there already. So Kim and Nosi, I can see in the chat box, you guys are already starting to connect. So just start, find another female, connect with them, explain to them what you want to do and what you're thinking, and get the advice from a fellow friend. Before you know it, you can't say that you maybe not an implementer or not a finisher, because I think women can partner in the most amazing ways, and you'll be surprised at how you actually end up finishing after all. It is a constant journey being an entrepreneur. It's a constant challenge, and it's a constant sort of collaboration and learning to what the world will give us, and in exchange for, I suppose, our next step forward. Thank you everyone for the call. Thank you to the guys behind the scenes, helping us make this possible. And ladies, thank you for joining me and for being such great panelists. You guys were on the button, on the pulse all the way. I do appreciate your time. And back to business. It's 3 o'clock. Bye now.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.